Hey, this is Matthew from Nerd News Today. Welcome back for another statue review. And this time around, once again, it is another piece from Diamond Select's Gallery Diorama series of PVC figure dioramas. The piece we're looking at today is a piece from their DC Gallery Diorama series, and this represents Superman's greatest arch nemesis, Lex Luthor. But it's not just any Lex Luthor, this is Lex in his Krypton-powered battlesuit. Now, full disclosure, I'm not like the biggest Superman fan out there. I've read a few here and there, of course, everybody has, and I've been up to date more or less in the stories. But, what really got me interested was actually this power armor in this piece here, because I've always thought it's one of the coolest designs ever. I've always loved whenever they've done him in this type of look. I love mech suits in general, so this is kind of a natural fit for me. And yeah, I think this is going to be another really strong piece, but we'll see about that in a few moments. First things first, of course, let's talk about this packaging here. So Lex Luthor here is in the traditional diamond box. It's a very large box, but it's got just enough space, of course, to make sure everything stays nice and firm in the packaging. What's kind of interesting to me is that, yes, this is a Superman piece, so obviously it's going to have Superman logos all over it, but it's a Lex Luthor piece. And I thought that the focus of the design of the box would actually be maybe a little bit more Luthor-centric. I'm not really sure, though. You guys can see at the front of the box here, it's got Superman's logo. And it almost looks like it's meant to be like Superman's tights in his pants, at least nowadays, because now he's wearing, I think, the blue, and he's got no longer really the tighty whiteys, or tighty reddies, if you will, that he previously wore. So this is kind of like New 52 style Superman packaging. But yeah, it reminds me a lot of like what we've seen with the Batman pieces, where it's like the gray upper body, gray legs, the black tights, or black trunks, if you will, and then the yellow utility belt. So we're kind of getting the same thing here with Superman. And I feel like Lex is, despite being Superman's arch nemesis, he's kind of just so big in the DC universe in general. I'm surprised he didn't get his own color pattern, really. And again, we've looked at a bunch of DC gallery diorama pieces of Batman's Rogues Gallery, and most of those, not all, but most, had the similar Batman look to them with the gray and essentially looking like his outfit. So yeah, it makes sense and it fits in line with everything that Diamond has done so far. But again, Lex, I feel like he's bigger than just Superman, but that's not really a big deal for me, of course, because he's not going to be in this box very long anyway. This Lex Luthor PVC figure diorama statue has 4 different windows into the packaging to get a better look at it. You've got, of course, the large window in the front and 1 window on the left and right side. And of course, with every diamond statue, you get the Diamond Select sunroof. The back of the box gives us a really nice picture of what the statue is going to look like once you open it up. And we've got a pretty good bio. This is one of those bios that's actually pretty good because it's actually quite concise, but hits every major point that you need to know about Lex. It doesn't really talk much about what his outfit is and how that all works together, but in spite of that, you're still getting a lot of information about what the character is, who the character is, so I'll give him a pass on that. But I wouldn't have minded one sentence just explaining that this is how Lex Luthor is able to go toe-to-toe with Superman and other DC superheroes. This piece was designed by Joe Allard and sculpted by Rocco Tartamella. 2 guys have done great work with a lot of the Diamond Select pieces we've looked at in the past, and especially with DC stuff, so yeah, I've got some high hopes here. It's looking a little bit Iron Man-esque, but we're going to see what it's like once he's out of the packaging. So on that note, let's go ahead and do that right now and take a look at Lex Luthor from all angles. Alright, and here's our Lex Luthor now out of the packaging. And this is basically Lex Luthor does Iron Man, and I'm all about that. So let's jump right into this here. Let's start things off with his face. Does this look like somebody who I would think is Lex Luthor? Now keep in mind this is based off of a comic appearance, not any actors, so likeness is always debatable about whether or not, it's a Lex Luthor. But it's got the bald head, it's got the facial expression. I think it's a pretty solid Lex. He looks like a dingus. Yeah, that's Lex Luthor, all right. I wouldn't have minded maybe the facial expression to be a little bit meaner. This is definitely more of a calculated looking Lex. He isn't exactly the kind of guy that's going to really go nuts anyway in a battle scene, I don't think. But I wouldn't have minded maybe just a little more something going on in the face, just let us know that he is in action, because the body is clearly very much in a fight. And I really do like this pose here. He's shooting a blast through his hands, and he's actually sitting back on this, you can see here, so that he can maintain this position, maintain his balance, and get some strength into it. That's what you do in boxing, is when you throw a hook and you want to land a knockout punch, you're going to want to sit down to that punch. It's going to give you a little bit more force and keep you steadier as you throw that blow. And that's what Lex is doing here. But he is pushing himself back a little bit, and that's because the force from this blast is pushing his body backwards. So the pose is pretty nice, pretty well thought out. But really, this piece is all about the suit of armor that he's wearing, and that's really no debate about that. I mean, yeah, the pose is cool and all, but we're talking about armor here because this is Lex's essentially Iron Man moment. But this is DC, so, Iron Man doesn't exactly exist in this universe. So, yeah, let's just talk about this armor, break it down. I think it looks really awesome. I think the sculpting job is very cool on this. The anatomy looks really good. I mean, this looks like it's actually a human being wearing armor, and it's not that far-fetched, not that crazy. Proportions are all correct and accurate. And it looks like something that a person could actually wear in real life. This isn't that far-fetched. Lex has worn this armor with a lot of different artists drawing it, and it's looked a lot of different ways. But this interpretation here, it looks very realistic, but it also does have a kind of a classic vibe with his legs in particular. because it's not really any segmented armor like we'd see today with modern Iron Mans, for example. But it's more like that classic style where they just basically drew lines in and said, yeah, that's how he moves. It's all bendable, coiled armor or some such nonsense. And I like that old-fashioned look, to be honest. Like, as much as I like the modern looks, I also like this older style that just made it a little more simpler, and it works really good. The hands are also really nice. Again, it's just basically him shooting out his repulsor beams or whatever it is that DC men of metal suits wear. No copyright infringement there. But totally works for me. Yeah, just lots of good details, but they kept it pretty simple. You know, like there's a lot going on in this piece. There's that really cool spine. I do like the spine a lot. He's even got some nice little jets in his feet down there and these boots, which I think are all, which I really do like a lot too. These boots are really cool looking. It's not like a super duper fancy set of armor, but it is a really good looking piece of armor, and that works for me. It doesn't need to be full of all sorts of lines and doohickeys popping off everywhere. It doesn't need to be like the Marvel Cinematic Universe Iron Man. It needs to be like a DC style character, and that's not meant to knock anybody in any way, but it's got to look different, and I think this is good. I think it's a good mix of modern and older styles of Lex's armor. The paint job is pretty good here. I mean, I feel like there's a little bit of schmutz up here on Lex's head, but it's really not that noticeable. They've done a very good job, though, painting his head. Like, this is a pretty good paint job there. It's not a super detailed look to Lex, but it actually does look pretty lifelike what they did. I mean, they've kept it very, very subtle. There's some, like, pink shades you can see in his brow, on his cheeks. There's a darker shade. There's a shadow being cast by his cheekbones. Now, they're really kind of using the sculpt to actually dictate color and things, and they're really letting nature do the job for you. Whatever lighting situation there's going to be, that's really more how he's going to look. And for a character who's got such a smooth head anyway, you know, there's not a ton of things you can do that wouldn't just like stand out a ton on it, because the more stuff you'd put on that head, the more it's going to basically make him look older and that kind of thing. You got to keep it simple, or else it will age up this Lex piece very rapidly. So they've done a really smart thing here, and that's really just letting the sculpt dictate the tonality and the shadow of the face and letting that create the color. Now, the armor is a little bit different because, for the most part, the purple, I think it's all fairly solid on all the pieces, but the green, they decided to do a little bit of airbrush detail in there, some surface lighting, to give you a little bit more depth. And you can see it here in this leg in particular, you can see where the muscles are, because, you know, number one, you can see there is a different, darker tone being used there, but you also see there's some light coming up onto this part here, and there's lights over here, because this armor is a little bit reflective, and that really does a great job to create form and shape on this Lex. It's surprisingly a very lifelike piece so far. But the one thing that does kind of take you out of this might be the translucent effect, and I love translucent effect, but, you know, compared to everything else and how realistic this whole piece is, this one bit here, it is very great, and I like it a lot, because I love me my energy blast effects, but, you know, compared to everything else here, it might be a little bit less realistic. I don't know, but it doesn't really do that much to detract from the statue, though, and I wouldn't want to have him without that piece either. So I'm not really complaining, I'm just pointing it out. What I think is really exciting, though, is this base here. So this base is just, you know, a bunch of rubble, and we've seen rubble in all sorts of other Diamond-like statues, but this time around, it's the Daily Planet. And the Daily Planet looks like it just got totaled. That's just some debris from the building, which means that Lex just had a fight with Superman, most likely on top of that building. So that's a really neat piece of storytelling that goes with the action in this piece. And yeah, rubble we've seen time and time again in these statues. Then the rocks, they all kind of look the exact same way, but what is different is the fact that you've got all these beams and the actual letters from the Daily Planet. So yeah, I like that a lot. I appreciate that. And it really helps to add to the scene. So overall, I think this is actually, believe it or not, a fairly lifelike piece for one of these Diamond Select statues. And we've looked at plenty of them that are, you know, really lifelike in terms of proportions and that kind of thing. But I feel like the way Lex's face is sculpted kind of helped dictate more the realism to how this piece looks. Because I'm thinking about other pieces like the Flash, because that was more of a naturalistic pose. Or even the Poison Ivy we looked at fairly recently too, and some other DC Rose Galleries characters. You know, for whatever reason, the DC characters tend to look more human, if you will, in a lot of ways, with the exception of like Scarecrow and Penguin and those types of things. But there's a lot more humanity than I feel like with a lot of the Marvel statues that Diamond has done. But this one here of Lex, it's very human for a character that's probably the least human of everybody out there, really. It's a very natural pose. It feels right. It feels organic. It feels like he's actually in the middle of a fight. The head sculpt is pretty much perfect. I mean, yeah, it's, again, not the most detailed, not the most crazy looking thing out there, but they've done a really smart job keeping it kind of composed within this piece and keeping it very real in what is really something that's rather surreal. Because you're talking about a billionaire fighting Superman. I mean, that's kind of crazy. I do think the suit actually is really cool. I'd love to have an action figure of this Lex in this suit right here that we're looking at today. There's a lot of good little details on it, but it's also getting kept pretty simple. It's basically the most important parts are what's there. They're not going crazy with things. This isn't an Iron Man. This is Lex Luthor. And even though I've made so many comparisons to Iron Man in this video, like I just said, it's not an Iron Man. It's Lex. He's going to have a different design aesthetic. This is what he's going for, and it totally works for him. So while I'm not a big Superman fan, the reason I got the statue is because it looks so cool with that armor on, and I liked everything that was going on with it, and now that I've got it in hand, totally not disappointed. This is a really good piece. If you got a Superman, of course, you need to have a Lex, but even without it, I think it still holds up on its own. It's really cool amongst other statues that you might have. It's just a really solid looking piece. So yeah, I'm going to give this one a definite recommend for you guys out there. Obviously, if you're a DC collector, you're going to want to absolutely have a Lex in your collection. And this is a really cool one to have and a unique one to have because he is in this armor. And this Lex, by the way, retails for about $50 depending where you get it from. Prices will fluctuate depending on time and availability. But if you guys like this piece and want to buy it today, why not use our Amazon affiliate link in the description below? It helps out this channel and costs you guys nothing extra. So please consider using our Amazon affiliate link if you want to purchase this Lex today. And I think this is one of those really strong pieces that's going to probably go under a lot of people's radar, but it's really worth adding to your collection. But let me know what you think about this statue in the comments below. Let me know if you even care about having a Lex Luthor statue, and if this is the version that you want. And while you're at it, don't forget to like this video, and if you're new here, please subscribe to us because we do all sorts of statue reviews, figure reviews, and a bunch of other things here on this channel. So until next time, I'm Matthew. This has been Nerd News Today, and thanks for watching. We'll see you guys here next time.